Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba. All right. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. And Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101.
This is Keith Levy from Paradigm, and you're on Promoter 101.
This is episode 161 of the Promoter 101 podcast, working our way all the way to our finale of episode number 200 that will air in late October. Joining me now is my good pal, my buddy, my friend, W. Luke Pierce.
Dan, good to have you in Nashville this week, man. Great hangs ahead. And great things ahead on Ep 161 of Promoter 101. We're going to continue the Hollywood sessions with Staples Center's, Microsoft Theater, and LA Live's president, Lee Zeidman, coming up in a full interview later on in this podcast.
Plus, we've got a great war story with Round Room's Stephen Shaw, or for the people that know him well, Mr. Shaw.
Episode 161 of Promoter 101 starts right now.
My name is Steinberg, and you can watch my daddy on Promoter 101.
Have you missed any of the past Promoter 101 episodes? Well, what the hell's wrong with you, man? Get with it! We'll tell you what, if you gotta go back and listen to some of the old ones because you're just not caught up, may we suggest episode 95?
It is a beautiful one indeed, Dan. We had some great interviews on episode 95, including AEG Presents Bobby Reynolds, who came on the podcast and talked about all the challenges of booking Sin City, Las Vegas.
Also, Noelle Largest breaks down the path of her success.
And we had a war story with Kill the 8 merchandise company's Aaron Rosen.
Hey, if you got a free moment, drop us a review, subscribe to the podcast, tell us what you're thinking, or tell some friends, why don't you?
This is Brian Traeger from Live Nation, and this is Promoter 101.
Up first on episode 161, we're going to kick it off with the war story with Round Room's Stephen Shaw.
We're talking war stories. What you got?
So I have this We Produced Bodies, the exhibition all around the world. And this was 14 plastinated human tissue bodies, everything from reproductive to cardiovascular, all the different systems of the human body. And we toured this all around the world. And I was sort of the lead producer, promoter of the show for Michael.
He was your baby.
Yeah. As we toured around the world, we started to knock off markets, and there's obviously competing shows. And we started dwindling down to the rarest markets that you would want to take bodies to. And I had an opportunity to take it to Kiev, Ukraine, where I went there. And as I was getting on the plane, Michael said, listen, if there's any problems, just call me. So I got to Kiev, picked up in a car. Two guys never spoken English, drive me to a venue. They show me a venue. The lead guy kept on saying, you see, you see, you see. That's all he could say. It was obviously a good space. We went out for dinner and we negotiated an advance against the guarantee. The advance against the guarantee was $125,000. I agreed to that, and immediately they pulled out a suitcase with $125,000. And I stood up and thought to myself, that looks like an amazing amount of money. Went to the bathroom. I phoned Michael Cole. I said, I've got $125,000 in the briefcase. He says, don't even go back into that room. Go to the airport, get on a plane, and come home. And that's my war story.
You left the case on the table, I take it.
I did not take the case. The case still sits there. I wanted to take the case so badly. I was young. I saw $125,000.
Did you literally leave without going back and telling them you were leaving?
I went back. I thanked them very much. I said, if they want to do the deal, we can do a wire transfer or check. Other than that, I'm going to go get on a plane and go home.
What does that look like in person? I don't think I've ever seen that much cash.
It didn't fill out the briefcase. Like, it was like 3/4 of the briefcase.
Because I think I've seen $50,000 a couple times, but
yeah,
you never need that much cash.
No, it was outrageous.
Did you want to take it back to the hotel and Scrooge McDuck it?
It was so crazy. The hotel they put me in had this strip club in the lobby of the hotel. It was the oddest experience. It was crazy. The guys who drove me looked like mafia. They drove me to the hotel. There was a strip club. They all had big smiles on their faces. It was just an odd experience.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Mr. Shaw will be back on Monday's episode with a full feature interview. Can't wait for that.
If you've got a good war story or you want to play 3 questions with us, shoot us an email, steiny@promoter101.net. That'll hit both of us. Let us know what 3 questions or war story you're dying to tell.
Do it.
This is Fielding Logan at Q Prime, and you're listening to Promoter 101.
Promoter 101 Flashbacks. Episode 22.
Andrew Dreskin.
Jason Miller, who's one of your closest friends, says that you killed the experience of buying tickets. I'm paraphrasing, but the concept of camping out for tickets built the experience.
I think what he says is, how do you live with yourself knowing that you've ruined the experience for every kid in America who will never know what it means to sleep online for a concert ticket?
That's amazing. You gotta love Jason Miller.
I love that guy. I love that guy.
It's one of my favorite things, and it is, because we've both shared that experience where you get to earn your better seat by getting there early and camping out and early hours of the morning, and then you've got that ticket in your hand, and the weeks of buildup and the hype of this is the day, whether it's Guns N' Roses at the stadium or you're seeing the Moody Blues, it doesn't really matter. There was a process that you earned the better seat, and the closer you were, the earlier you were to get in line, and you earned that.
Yeah, I think those were great days. I used to sleep online for concert tickets, whether it was AC/DC or Bruce Springsteen or whatever it was, and it was an amazing experience. There was a collegial, fraternal experience that happened online where you met people you didn't know, and you had the shared love of the band, and you got your tickets, and that was that. You know, now is amazing too. It's a dynamic time. It's the most dynamic time there's ever been in ticketing and live events, and there's tons of other cool stuff. You know, now the fact that you can buy tickets online and understand better where your seats are, and you can share those tickets with your friends and rally a group, and there's a lot of good stuff happening now too. But I certainly will always miss those days of sleeping in the cold for my favorite band.
Yeah, I got amped up last time we talked about this and went back to some managers and said, the experience is cool. We should go on sale. Essentially how they do vinyl now. We should release vinyl a week early is what they usually do on the release. Let's put tickets on sale 3 days in advance before the pre-sale for people willing to camp out. Let's find a record store that's centrally located downtown and give them the best seats. And let's go on sale there first. And all three managers said the same thing to me. People will send scalpers to sit out front. They'll buy them and sell them online before we go on sale, and you're going to get the best seats to the scalpers because they are going to camp out and buy all of the fucking tickets. You fucking moron. And
they're not wrong.
They're not wrong. And I was coming from a good place of passion that I wanted to share that love that Jason has and I have. It's not a matter of it being a great idea, which I think it is, but I understand that I've completely fucked up the concept because the scalpers have ruined the game there. It's that time has passed that by, and it's a new day. There's a new way to do that, and that's just not how the game is played anymore, and we have to adapt with the age and the time, and technology has passed that by. That experience is lost to technology.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think we're seeing a good analog for this today in some of the populism in this recent election. It's not Mexico or China that are stealing our jobs. It's technology. And, this is another example. Technology has moved along, and it's made it much easier and much more efficient. But it's also, we're sacrificing some of those special moments that the kids of today will never know.
Yo, this is Tommy Lee. Yeah, that T Lee. And you're listening to Promoter 101. Fucking turn this shit up, bitches.
Tweets of the week.
It's Thursday. That means it's time for some tweets of the week. Let's look into Dan's mind for this past week, and let's start here. When a manager wants to roll a second show not based on sales or demand, but on gross potential.
This is so short-sighted. You really have to watch the actual sale trends and not just what you wish the sale trends were. The only thing worse than an empty room is an empty room for multiple nights. Don't you agree, Luke?
I absolutely would agree, Dan. I like this one, too. When an agent fails at passive-aggressive and just comes off as aggressive-aggressive.
Yeah, just stop the drama already and just tell us what you actually need. Maybe we'll surprise you and do what you want.
Maybe, maybe not.
It's a roll of the dice, my friends.
When an agent that has never confirmed a single date with you tries to pressure you into sending an offer.
How many of you think this one was about you? Well, at least one of you is right.
That'll do it for Tweets of the Week. Make sure you keep up with Dan and all of his bits of wisdom on Twitter. He's at The Jew.
I am. Call your mother.
Call your mother.
This is George Corey from 888 Management. You're listening to Promoter 101.
We've been looking forward to this interview for quite some time now because this guy runs some of the biggest, best-known venues in one of the hottest markets in America. He runs the Staples Center, Microsoft Theater, and the Downtown LA Live. Welcome, LA Live President Lee Zeidman.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
there are a lot of people that have the venue general manager job around the country that run some amazing arenas. Some really great guys that know this business inside and out. To get to the arena level, stadium level, you really have to know that business and be great at it. But to run it in an A market, New York, Chicago, LA, London, you just have to be the best in the world at it. You've been running venues in A markets your almost entire career, but you've been doing it in LA since the opening of Staples Center. Like, there is no parallel to that.
There isn't. And before I got to Staples Center, actually, I was the first person that was ever hired for Staples Center specific. So I've been part of the team that actually designed it, developed it, constructed it, and operated it. But I spent 10 years at the Forum. Prior to that, when I left, it was the Great Western Forum, and I had the opportunity to work for Claire Rothman, world-renowned venue manager who actually broke ground in that genre. And I worked for Jeannie Buss my last couple of years there. So I had a good training ground working at the Forum, working with the Lakers and the Kings. And, that was the concert venue in Los Angeles at the time.
You have possibly more championship rings than any venue GM in the world.
I have 7. And you know what? I'd like to get one more before I'm done. I don't really care if it's a Lakers, Clippers, or Kings ring, but I would love to do that one more time because I could tell you as a venue manager, as a venue operator, there's nothing more rewarding than to be the last man standing, I like to say, the last team playing in either the NBA or the NHL. And, we've been fortunate enough in my 30 years in the business where I've been able to host 9 NBA finals where the teams have won 5 times. I've been able to host 3 Stanley Cup finals where the team has won twice and 3 WNBA championships where the team has won 3 times as well. So it's been pretty exciting because I've got friends in the business, as you know, Dan, that don't even sniff the first round of a playoff series. And I think it would be very tough for me to be in this business night in and night out if I was in a venue where you drew 10,000 people and the teams that played there never got a chance to go to the playoffs.
You've got 4 tenants, right? 4 major sports tenants.
Correct.
In your building. So finding time to work in arena level concert acts that do play your room has got to be a juggling act on Houdini scale.
With 4 professional franchises playing in the building, 2 NBA, 1 NHL, and a WNBA team, it gets tough. But I'll tell you what's tougher. It's when you have to hold from April 15th to June 15th, when you hold 60 days out of the calendar, right out of the chute, because you don't know if your teams are going to get into the playoffs, A. B, you don't know if they're going to have a home court or home ice advantage. And C, you don't know if they're going to be on what network they're going to be on. So effectively, you can't even book during that time. So we came up with an idea of we're doing either ors to where if you're Ariana Grande, for instance, who is playing Staples Center May 6th and 7th of this month, if we need it for an NBA game, she would acquiesce and move to the next mutually agreeable date. So we've done a lot of those things. And this summer will be the biggest summer concerts that we've had based on the fact that we've got to hold all those. As it relates to the teams playing, I think the toughest thing being a venue manager is trying to determine what dates to give up, what dates to hold. And when you have 4 teams playing, it gets a little tighter and a little tougher. And, you need to wait until July 1 for the NBA because that's when the free agency movement happens. For instance, the Lakers just last year got LeBron James, as you know. It didn't turn out as well for everybody as they would have hoped, but that changed the tables on how many times they were going to be on national TV, and it affects the entire schedule.
Now, I was recently a guest of yours at a Lakers game, and I've been to a lot of basketball games in a lot of arenas, but I've never seen as many celebrities in one place at one time as I did at that particular game. And it wasn't a particularly special game. It was just a Lakers game, regular season, but there were tons of celebrities in the room. Do you have to have tighter security than a regular arena just because there's going to be a flea sitting in the front row and there's going to be a Jack Nicholson? Does that change how you set up security on your game so those people can be safe and enjoy their experience?
It doesn't change because from the get-go, we've always been about security and safety, not only for the patrons that attend the events, but for the performers, the artists, athletes as well. And our philosophy is we want to harden our soft target. By that, I mean, we're a soft target. We're not a military installation. We're not a government building. Anybody can walk up to our doors at any time. So what we try to do is be more visible than anybody else out there. By that, I mean, we will have our in-house security be outside more. We'll have our contracted LAPD security be outside more. We've got canine sniffing dogs in and around the venue. So you try to harden that soft target. So it doesn't change if it was a Sparks game or the Laker game that you were at where there was a tremendous amount of celebrities. I think it might have even been the Boston game, as I recall.
It was.
But it doesn't change. You try to be as safe and secure as possible. And I think one of the ways you do that is by being visible and by being vigilant in what you see and what you report.
I don't want to name drop the number of celebrities that were there, but within a couple of
Including
minutes,
yourself? Come on.
Yeah. Well, while I was talking to you, Flea walked past us. Jimmy Smits came up to give you a hug. 3 other celebrities walked by in the time, and all of them acknowledged you. You're the celebrity in that room. It's amazing. And obviously it has to do with the hospitality that you treat your guests.
We treat all the guests the same. And, listen, we're in partnership with the team that's playing that night. We don't control everything as a venue. We can control the guest experience once you get into the venue. But as it relates to doing certain things for celebrities or creating the rooms for celebrities, such as the Chairman's Club that you were in, the Chairman's Room that night, that was controlled by the Lakers. So they'll put out a big spread. The Clippers will do their own spread. The Kings will do their own thing. But as it relates to people coming into the building, we've been doing this 20 years now at Staples Center. And I was fortunately at the Forum for 10 years. And if you harken back to those days, the Forum Club was the biggest singles bar in Los Angeles on the night of Lakers and Kings games. It was pretty phenomenal.
The experience of being treated special when you go to an event is something everybody enjoys. And you guys have been able to do that on a very big level, so you can make a lot of people really enjoy their experience on a very high level.
We're able to do that because we have a lot of amenities. We have our own valet parking operation. We have parking down below underneath Staples Center for VIP people that need that access, or dignitaries coming in from other countries or from other cities or other states. And we have 5 premium spaces within the building that we can create those spaces with our teams. So it's really a collaborative effort between the building and the teams that are playing, or the promoter, be it AEG Presents, Golden Voice, Live Nation, Nederlander, or anybody else coming in there, Beaver Productions. We'll work with them to create these experiences as the patrons or the celebrities and other guests come into the building.
Of the 365 days a year, how many of those days are you guys running?
We do ticketed events anywhere between 230 and 250, depending on playoffs. And that's ticketed events. And so anytime, and I find this very interesting and actually funny at times, when you see a new building being built that's popping up with one team that's playing in it, well, that's 41 nights plus playoff games. And everybody comes out of the Shute Stadium, we're going to do 200 events. You do the math, 41 basketball games or 41 hockey games. That's a heck of a lot of concerts, a hell of a lot of Feld shows to get to 200. But legitimately, Staples Center will do anywhere between 220 and 250, depending on the playoff schedules.
Okay, so legitimately, there is a good 80 dates of possibility that could still be filled. So when acts are looking to play somewhere, you guys have some availability.
You're right, but you also have to take into consideration 60 of those days are in that time frame that I told you in the very beginning of this conversation, April 15th to June 15th. A lot of festivals are taking place at that time. The amphitheaters are up and running. A lot of competition in Southern California during that time. If we didn't even have to block out those dates, you've got the beach, you've got the weather, you've got the theme parks, you've got everything that you can imagine as it relates to the entertainment dollar in Southern California, which we have to compete against.
So if those 60 dates were on the table, it wouldn't necessarily be a given that they'd automatically fill in.
No, they wouldn't. And we fight for them. Listen, we fight against the Greek Theater. We fight 5 Points Amphitheater down that Live Nation has put back up down in Irvine, the Hollywood Bowl, the stadium shows, the festivals of which our own company, AEG Presents Golden Voice just did 2 weekends of Coachella and Stagecoach. So we compete against quite a few festivals, quite a few outdoor venues just to get some content in our building.
Now, your AEG facilities.
No, part of AEG, but AEG Facilities is separate. It's its own division. And as you read, there's a merger now going on with SMG, but my little slice of downtown Los Angeles is not part of AEG Facilities. It's its own little entity. I'm responsible for Staples Center, Microsoft Theater, and the campus, LA Live, except for the hotels and the Novo, Club Novo, which is run by Golden Voice. So I'm effectively the landlord to those people, and the 19 restaurants, but we're our own little entity.
Okay, so just like Axis would be, you guys are part of the family, but you're your own circle.
Correct.
Okay, so that's actually kind of fascinating. AEG, when it comes to their venues and the live presenting companies, seems like they run as complete separate companies. And whether it's Live Nation or AEG coming to rent your building, you're there to get the date and service your side of the business. It doesn't seem like you guys necessarily push the ball one way or another. It's whoever's getting the show is going to get the date to rent from you guys.
You are correct. With 170 suites in a building, with founding partners, with 2,600 premium seats, with 19 restaurants across the street, I'm not in a position to play favorites, even if it's my sister company. I'm all about content. I'm all about getting more content in that building so I could feed the miles across the street. By that, I mean the restaurants, and that I could fill the dates in the building for our founding partners, for our suite owners, and the general public. So if Emporium Presents came to me with a run of 6, 7 shows, I'll cut a deal with you. In my opinion, there are no rate cards in this business anymore. It's what you need to do to get the content to make the deal and get the band or the act or the promoter into the venue.
So when you look at the arena, it's state of the art. Everyone loves it. It books itself. I mean, I know it doesn't. It doesn't.
If it booked itself, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. But I appreciate that compliment.
But it is the gold standard in the business.
But it's 20 years old now, Dan. It's 20 years old. So now we're contemplating Staples Center 2.0 because there are a heck of a lot of venues that have just sprouted up. Milwaukee just opened up. State Farm in Atlanta just did a big renovation. Wells Fargo in Philadelphia is doing their big renovation. A few years back, the Garden did their $1 billion renovation. So in order for us to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, not only countrywide, but on our own market, because next year we'll have the Los Angeles Sports and Entertainment Center opening up at the football stadium, a 6,000-seat theater right across the street from the Forum. And if you follow this market, Steve Ballmer, the owner of the Clippers, wants to build his own arena in Inglewood, a mile from the Forum and a mile and a half from the football stadium.
Sounds like you guys aren't going to be left in the dust.
We're not going to be left in the dust. I'll tell you why we're not going to be left in the dust, because right now we're more of a destination. We are a destination in downtown Los Angeles because I like to tell people when you get to LA Live, you no longer need wheels. You're in a hotel. You can go see a movie if you want to see a movie. You've got a music venue from 2,300 seats to 7,000 seats to 20,000 seats. You've got Lucky Strike Bowling. You've got the ESPN broadcast studios there. There's a tremendous amount of things to do once you get to LA Live. So we're a destination. And when you read about and see all these other cities putting up quote unquote LA Lives, it's not that easy. It wasn't easy for us in the first couple of years too, because when the seasons ended and we didn't have concerts, or we didn't have anybody playing there in those summer months with only 15 to 20,000 people living in downtown Los Angeles, I had those restaurants knocking on my door. What's next, Lee? What's next? And you just can't, as you know, fabricate, a 20,000 seat concert in the matter of 2-3 weeks.
You've got a theater, you've got a club, you've got all sorts of different entertainment. What Anschutz did downtown Los Angeles, which technically for entertainment's sake was pretty much dead before you guys came in and redeveloped that area. You guys made that a mecca again and made a financial investment and changed the vibe of all of downtown Los Angeles with the redevelopment. When you guys were originally talking about that and you were in early before the venues were open, did you think that was going to be so, that you guys were going to be successful to the point that you are now, of that redevelopment of everybody's mindset of downtown Los Angeles to be an entertainment mecca?
No, to be honest with you, my focal point at that point was, let's just get this arena open, because you have to understand, we moved everybody from Inglewood, which they had been going to for 30 years. The Lakers and the Kings had their fan base, and the celebrities and everybody with the concerts had been going to Inglewood for 30 years. So there was no guarantee that Staples Center was going to be as successful as it has been over the last 20 years, because we had to change the entire mindset of 2 franchises. And then at the last minute, we added a 3rd franchise to become the only arena in the country with 2 NBA teams. So there was quite a bit of work to do to educate everybody. Nobody came downtown. I've lived in Southern California for 55 years now. Nobody came downtown. There was no reason to ever go downtown. There was no football teams down there anymore. The USC played at the Coliseum at that time, but there was no reason to ever go downtown. There was nothing there. So what Staples Center did, and the success of Staples Center, it revitalized downtown Los Angeles and paved the way for AEG, which was actually born after Staples Center. And with the purchase of Golden Voice, and then with the introduction of AEG Presents, and now, or AEG Live back then, now AEG Presents, it came after the success of Staples Center, and nobody really knew what to expect with those hotels we were building down there and the restaurants, because as you remember, we opened them, back in a financial downtrend, and it was tough in the very beginning.
Remember, Polestar Live opened that hotel.
Polestar Live did.
You were still plastic on mattresses, like in the hallway as you were checking into rooms. It was kind of awesome.
It was pretty wild. I'll tell you, those were some pretty interesting days, because, we opened up 1,000-room, 2 hotels right at the same time that we were opening up Microsoft Theater. Right after Microsoft Theater opened up, it was actually Nokia Theater back then. And then the restaurants came, and, we were out there attracting everything. We sold the Democratic National Convention. We sold the Grammys. We sold Neris on a hole in the ground way back then to actually get them to come to our building. And we actually made design changes in Staples Center for the Grammys and Neris, which afforded us the opportunity to now host 18 out of 20 Grammys.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. The average night in your room is broadcast on TV. You've got any one of the NBA games, NHL games, and WNBA. It's like, this is stuff that's naturally on TV anyway. So you're used to an amazing amount of press being at your game anyway. But now you've got something like the Grammys or a country awards where it's all about the simulcast. The pressure that's on somebody to get that right and the amount of planning is like doing a massive festival. I mean, you plan for something like that all year long with the networks to get that perfect. And it's got to run seamlessly. How much time and effort when you know you're getting that event probably 2 or 3 years in advance are you planning and working with those guys to pull that off perfectly?
Well, first thing you have to understand is that we met with them early on, so we designed features into the building. By that, I mean we have a Grammy Vom, a vomitory that empties itself that allows the Grammys to load in from the front and the back of the house. We do that for concerts now as well. We changed the elevator usage in the building. We added a couple that allow the winners off the stage at the Grammys to get up to all the VIP areas and the press areas where they did their winner's walk. So some of those things were done in advance. But I recall that first Grammys that we did, I had no idea if we could hang as much as we hung. We hung 350,000 pounds. I spent 4 nights in the building holding my breath every night that this new motor going up there, this new piece of scenery, this new sound is not going to be the one piece that actually bends the steel and all the shit starts coming down. We had a surveyor come out every night to do a measurement to see how much the steel was deflecting. Because while we designed the building for that, back then nobody had designed a building for 350,000 pounds because no one on tour would ever carry that much. That's what we designed it for. But until we did it, we didn't know how the building was going to react. And it was stressful, that very first Grammys, of those kind of things going on and building it for that and then moving in the broadcast. There were some times when you lost some sleep and you only had 11 days from start to finish to get them in and out. And always 24 hours after the Grammys, you had a basketball game or a hockey game. And you'd sweat it to make sure that they got out in time because it wasn't like you can move an NBA or an NHL game at the drop of a hat.
Now, you posted 2 of the biggest funerals in the history of the world. Michael Jackson's was clearly probably the most broadcast, and obviously Nipsey Hussle's was huge. Things that happened last second that you guys pulled together, these massive simulcasts. You got forever to plan for the Grammys. You know a couple of years in advance it's coming. You guys are working that. When you're doing something like Nipsey or Michael Jackson's memorial service, you guys are putting that together in days.
Well, you're probably talking to one of the only venue operators in their entire career that's actually done 5 funerals/memorials. I was fortunate enough to do Chick Hearn. When Chick Hearn passed away, we did a viewing for him at Staples Center. We did John Cassette, the longtime producer of the Grammys. We did his memorial at Staples Center as well. Dr. Buss, we did his memorial at Microsoft Theater, the owner of the Lakers, when he passed away. And then Michael Jackson, we did in 2009, and then Nipsey Hussle. Now, I will tell you that Michael Jackson in his own right, the king of pop, there was no blueprint for us to look at. When we first met with the family, we first met with LAPD, nobody had any idea how we were actually going to put this together. With the family, you're dealing with the mother and the father, you're dealing with all the brothers. Trying to get decisions made was pretty tough as we moved through everything. Trying to get tickets on sale, trying to make sure that people got the tickets in the right hands so they weren't scalped or people didn't come down. We only had as reference points Princess Di, when she died, 250,000 people lined the streets of London. When Elvis died back then, there were 75,000 people that lined the streets of Graceland. So those were the only 2 really celebrity memorial viewings that we actually could go to school on. And we had no idea how many people were going to come downtown to Los Angeles for the Michael Jackson broadcast memorial there. Nipsey Hussle, we did that in 6 days. 2 of those days were on a weekend. And, Nipsey played BET, our BET festival, the previous year. He was scheduled to play this year. Completely different animal as it relates to how we put that on because of what was going on in the building. What people don't know is when we did Michael Jackson, we actually had to delay the circus move in by a day. We actually did the elephant walk right by all the press that was lined up on Chick Hearn waiting to get into the building to get the animals there before the Michael Jackson thing. For Nipsey Hussle, we had to move a championship boxing match by a load-in date of one time and a weigh-in. So it wasn't like we were sitting with these open days. And there's a tremendous amount of coordination, not only between the family, between the city, between agents, between managers, between the artists that are going to play these things, tremendous amount of coordination. And fortunately, both of those memorials went off, I'll say, public facing without a hitch, but they were challenging. They were very challenging.
It's extraordinary to think of, this is happening. And you really don't think of what else is happening in the venue. That's an amazing thing and obviously nobody wants to say no to a memorial service. It sounds like a lot of your partners were very flexible and worked with you to make that happen.
Live Nation was our partner for Nipsey Hussle. AEG Live was our partner for Michael Jackson. And I will tell you that working with both of those promoters on both of those major events was seamless, to be honest with you. And you're working with grieving families. You're working with people who are just mortified over the loss. And, then you've got to work with the city. You've got to work with the police department, the fire department. For Michael, we did the ticket distribution at Dodger Stadium where you got a letter and a wristband. For Nipsey, we put them on Access. And these were free tickets. And there were 15,000 tickets that went out for that. A free event is much more challenging in my mind because you don't know how many people are actually going to show up and who's not going to show up. But I will tell you this, doing both of those memorials were two highlights of my career in this business, A, and B, they were absolutely the right thing to do, not only from a community standpoint, but from a family standpoint as well.
I want to go back to what you just said for a second. AEG partnered with you on the Michael Jackson, Live Nation partnered with you on Nipsey's memorial service. These were not things that the city picked up. This is not things the family picked up. These corporations came to the table because they were artists they had worked with, and they, for free events to see these artists off that they were partners and in business with, they came to the table, which I don't think anybody's talked about publicly, but everybody talks about, especially in the music industry, it's all about the money and whatever else. But two huge corporations that were never going to see another live ticket sold from these artists came to the table and opened up their wallets, and very quietly.
Very quietly. In fact, you haven't heard anything about it really, but they both did. And, working with the venue, because we were very much in tune with them, lock, step, and barrel in terms of costs, making sure that everything was safe and secure. So we also participated in that. But, these are corporations, big corporations that did the right thing in my mind. And the venue did the right thing, not only for the artists, but for the artists' fans, family, and the communities as well.
Corporations having a heart in our music industry, that's something that I don't want to skip over. That greed and the money is just so oftenly focused on in our industry. To see that happen seamlessly without anybody talking about it is kind of a unique thing.
It was a very unique thing. And, we had to get Top Rank Boxing to play along as well. And they had the venue for that day for Nipsey. And, as it relates to Michael Jackson, Feld had the venue for that day. They both participated and said, absolutely, we will do whatever it takes to allow you guys to pull off these two massive memorials. And they were pretty massive. And if you watch the news afterwards, once Nipsey left the building, the processional that went throughout the city of Los Angeles and the stops it made, huge turnout for that. Same thing for Michael Jackson with the 100 million plus people that actually watched that entire ceremony on TV back then in 2009.
Lee, you've done it all. Grammys, world championships, one of the biggest venues in the world, clearly one of the most successful. What's your goal? What's left to do?
Get myself on an island somewhere where when Dan comes over to my island and he wants to rent my jet skis, my biggest stress is, I'm sorry, Dan, there's not enough sunshine today. Come back tomorrow morning. That said, you're right. I've been fortunate. I've been fortunate enough that I've worked with great men and women throughout my entire career. I've never had to leave Southern California for my entire career. And that's almost unheard of in the venue business. It's like being an anchor person on a newscast or being a DJ in a market where you start out in a smaller market. I got very lucky. And then, what I try to tell younger people getting into the business, I got lucky and I became a sponge and I asked a lot of questions and I sucked up as much knowledge as I could when I first got my first night at the Forum. There was a hockey game. And listen, I went to the Forum as a kid in college. I saw every major act there. I saw the 84 Olympics there. I saw everything that you can imagine to see at the Forum because I grew up in Southern California. My first night there, I'm standing right next to the glass on a hockey game and I'm standing there and I'm freezing my ass off because I obviously didn't wear enough clothes. And I'm looking at this ice and I'm going, I have no idea how this ice got here. I have no idea where this ice goes when we're all done. And I have no idea how to maintain it. And all of a sudden, as the new director of operations of the Forum, I'm responsible for it. So I became a sponge and I did every job you could imagine, from cleaning toilets to sweeping floors to converting the building to doing everything possible so I could learn it. And I try to tell people who want to get into this business, first of all, this business chews up and spits out relationships. It's an industry that there are no weekends or holidays because it's all event driven. So you have to be committed and dedicated to doing that. But once you want to get into this business, and it could be a promoter, you could be a marketing person, you could be working at a venue or for a team, you need to become a sponge and suck up as much knowledge as you can because you don't know if you want to work for a team or a venue or a promoter per se.
Just an epically interesting place to put the world in general. But I got to ask You said you've done every job. Can you drive a Zamboni?
No, I don't drive Zambonis and I don't drive forklifts. I'll tell you why. Because I'm not good driving a car either. So if I got on a Zamboni and I got on a forklift in and around that venue, I'm hitting shit. And my guys and women that work with me and for me, they don't want to see me on any of those kind of electrical or gasoline powered or propane powered vehicles because I will hit something and I will hurt somebody, most likely myself.
You've got to be one of the most quiet, laid back guys, kind of shy that I know in the industry. But do you have any advice for some of the younger kids coming up for career longevity? Because you've had a pretty substantial career.
I do. Like I said, there are a few things that I tell people when I go back and talk to college campuses, and I get invited, 3, 4, 5 times a year. The first thing is, I think you need to determine what you actually want to do. You don't have to determine it yet, but this is a big industry. As you know, you could be working for a promoter such as yourself in marketing, in ticket sales, in PR or anything. You could do the same for a team. You could do the same for a venue. So you have to kind of understand where you want to be. Second thing I tell people is ask questions. You need to ask questions and not be afraid to ask questions because that's how you're going to gain knowledge and that's how you're going to get educated. And then the third thing is I always tell people, and just like I told you a minute ago, become a sponge and suck up as much knowledge about that organization as possible. Do informational interviews because if you're like our industry or if you're like our venue, we promote from within. And so the more you know about what you know about our venue, the better off you're in a position to do it. So if you ask questions, and listen, my people I think sometimes they're terrified or intimidated. I hear when I ask questions, I'm not asking questions to intimidate people or to try to trip them up. Dan, I'm asking questions to re-educate myself because, half the time I can't remember last night's score, let alone what we did 20 years ago in our venue.
I believe our industry is based on relationships. And I know that you believe that, but I got to say, I think that you have a level of hospitality that I haven't seen the parallel anywhere else in the industry and maybe any industry. The way you take care of people when they're in your venue, artists, fans, customers, promoters, doesn't matter, is unparalleled. Where did you learn that? How did that come?
I think it comes from the teams that I've been associated with, first and foremost, and the promoters that I've had a chance to be associated with, first and foremost, because they've always instilled on the fan first, the artist first. And so as a venue, we've adopted that. I mean, we have 4 franchises to play there, numerous promoters that come into our venue. We're not going to get the repeat business, or we're not going to get the satisfaction from the patrons of Lakers or Clippers or Kings or Sparks or the Live Nation concert goers or the AEG Presents or Golden Voice concert goers unless we can produce that first class experience. And so we work with the teams, we work with the promoters, we work with the leagues, we research everything, and we try to continue to stay cutting edge. And I think that as we move forward in the summer and the next couple of years, you're going to hear more about Staples Center 2.0, about how we're going to change the building and how we're going to reinvent ourselves, not by just new paint, new furniture, or new carpet in our venue, by coming up with new ways to reinvent the premium business, for instance, as it relates to suites and premier seats, as it relates to hospitality in our various spaces, what we could do to be better. So you're going to hear more about that in the coming months ahead as we move forward with that. And taking into consideration what our tenants want, what our promoters want, what they want to see for their fans coming in there. I believe, relationships get you in the door. There are times when I've said this to a lot of people, big checks close the door as it relates to losing shows because we've lost shows at Staples Center because bigger checks have been written, throughout the industry. You talk about greed and you talk about all that other stuff. But there are certain relationships that you need to have in order to be able to maintain yourself as a first-class venue. And we're fortunate enough to have it with 4 franchises, numerous promoters, and 3 professional sports leagues.
Thank you so much for taking time, Lee.
You are welcome at any time.
Lee's a giant in the venue management world. So thrilled to have him here on P101. This guy has more championship rings than most athletes will ever dream of. So great to have the great Lee Zeidman right here on Promoter 101.
Lucy Lawler-Freese, Rival Entertainment and the Fox Theater in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm on Promoter 101.
Hey, that'll do it. It's episode 161 of Promoter 101. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. And thank you to our amazing guest this week from LA Live and Los Angeles, Lee Zeidman, and from the Round Room, Stephen Shaw. Thank you both for coming on the podcast. If you like what you heard here, send us a note. We want to know what you think. Hit us at Steiny@promoter101.net. Tell us what's on your mind.
Hey, we'll be back Monday, 5 p.m. p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. on the Eastern Seaboard.
That's right. We're going to have a full interview with Stephen Shaw from the Round Room on that podcast, so be sure to tune in, especially if you liked his war story today.
Mr. Shaw, please.
Mr. Shaw, I'm so sorry, Dan.
You don't want to make Mr. Shaw mad.
Mr. Shaw.
Mr. Shaw, he's a good guy. Until then, we're wishing you sold-out shows for the week to come. Cheers.
Call your mother.
She worries.
Hi, my name's Ed Bicknell, and I'm Promoter 101, and I'm in room 24-something, and I've got an inside leg measurement of 32 inches and a cup size of 31A.
Ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da-ba.